Hello, and welcome to my April 2024 reading wrap up. I am actually so excited about this one because I read some really good books this month. I've actually read 9. 4 of them are rereads, but they are rereads of books that I do enjoy. They're 3 and 4 star reads for me, and actually one of them might actually be a 5-star. We'll see. But I basically just read all month, and there were some new books, some old books, a favorite series that I revisited, but essentially all in all, I am out of that reading rut that I was in February. I have gotten away from the slew of bad books that I happened to read in March as I was getting out of that reading rut, and just about every book I read this month was 3 stars or more, and I enjoyed it, and I wanted to know what happened next, which I think is the biggest thing. So yeah, that has me super excited to share with you guys what I read this month. So the first book that I read was Here We Go Again by Alison Cochrun, and I've said it before, but I really like Alison Cochran's books. Charm Offensive, what I found was so sweet and charming, and Kiss Her Once for Me, which I read over Christmas, is like the perfect Christmas novel. And Here We Go Again lived up to expectations. It follows 2 girls who used to be friends and kind of broke apart in high school, but then later on in life they are teaching at the same high school, and they are forced to go on this road trip in this blue gay van across America because their teacher wants to go on this beloved teacher, I should say, wants to go on one last trip before he passes of cancer. And this book was bittersweet. Going into it, we know that Joe, this teacher, is going to pass away. We know he's going on the trip to die, essentially. But we also have this beautiful story of the 2 girls coming into their own and kind of realizing, like, who they are. So 10 out of 10 recommend, but just know, trigger warning, there is a death in it, and it does deal with cancer. After that, I read Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez, which I've actually never read an Abby Jimenez book before, and everyone always talks about how good they are. So when Just for the Summer came out, I figured I would pick it up and see what a bit of the hype was. I admittedly did not realize that this was actually the 3rd book in a series, but that being said, it very much is a standalone because I didn't realize that it was the 3rd book in a series until I was reading the author's note at the end of the book. So, which is great. It's a fun story. There's a lot of mental health representation in it, but it's also not really said that it's mental health representation at the start. So our main character, she does start kind of uncovering stuff about herself, and she comes to this realization that maybe she needs help but needs to have a relationship with a therapist, but it happens kind of in the 3rd act-ish of the book, and the whole thing is really just driving her forward, as opposed to us coming in with her knowing that she has a mental health problem and needing to deal with it. So I really enjoyed it. I would 10 out of 10 recommend it. After that, I read Piglet by Lottie Hazel, and this is definitely like a literary fiction book. I think the cover is like what kind of drew me in first, the picture of that like juicy burger. And this is a book about food. It's about this woman who discovers her husband has some sort of transgression, which we never find out what he did, just 14 days before her wedding, and she kind of grapples with all of that. And she is a cookbook author. She's a cookbook editor, and she likes food, and the whole book is her essentially like she finds out about this transgression, and we just know that it's absolutely egregious, and she starts feeling the need to eat. Like there's a scene where she goes to a restaurant and she orders every single like burger or sandwich on the menu, and the descriptions of the food will have you starving. Like she just talks about how a fried chicken sandwich crunches underneath the brioche, and I was like, oh, I know exactly what you're talking about, and you know that sandwich is going to be good. And there's kind of this funny scene where she's talking about making a croquembouche for her wedding, and how she's going to make it 3 of them and do this whole elaborate thing, and it's just kind of funny at the same time, but also really not, because this woman is spiraling as she's trying to grapple with what this man did. And as much as I wish I knew what he did, because I love mess, I think part of the beauty in the book is that, like, we don't even know. Like, we don't know what his transgression is. We don't know if it's big. We don't know if it's kind of like small. It's all relative to, I guess, what you would think is big or small. But this book is brilliant, and I'm so excited to see what Lottie Hazel does next. This was her debut novel, but I absolutely loved it. After that, I actually dived into my first reread of the month, and I actually decided to go back to ACOTAR. So I had read the ACOTAR series a while ago, and then I happened to see someone talking about the books in general and realized that while I have reread A Court of Mist and Fury and A Court of Wings and Roses, I have actually never gone back to ACOTAR, and I was kind of curious about what happens. So I started ACOTAR from the start. It still is very easily my least favorite book in the series, like of the three. It's just not entertaining to me at all, and I find that so many good things happen afterwards. But I read it. It was nice to revisit it. Rereading it when you know kind of what happens later on and how to feel about a certain character, it's super easy to be like, oh, you were showing signs in book one of being a little bit diabolical, but whatever. After that, I dived into A Court of Mist and Fury, and you know, this is my favorite book in the series. So much happens in the second book, and it's all kind of like, there's a little bit more like world building, because you start to see the other courts, you start to find out about people. I love the found family element that is really, really big with the inner circle in this one. And I just kind of like Feyre kind of coming into her own and discovering a whole bunch of things about herself and who she wants to be, and also realizing that she's not necessarily like a damsel in distress. And I know the other characters really do a lot to kind of push her to see that she's not just a damsel in distress, that she actually has power and she's not breakable. And then obviously after that, I was committed. I had to read A Court of Wings and Ruin, which I've always kind of jokingly called the war book, because it is. Like, that's basically all that happens in this book. They are at war. They are planning. They're either planning war or they're actively fighting in the war. And, you know, it's good. It's a needed conclusion to the book. It still has me, like, hooked into wanting to know what happens. But A Court of Mist and Fury just has my heart between the two. But the ACOTAR books were my first 3 rereads of the month. After that, I read The Fake Out by Stephanie Archer, which is the second book in the Vancouver Storm series, and it follows Rory, who is the captain of the hockey team, and Hazel, who is an athletic trainer for the hockey team, and our character from book 1's sister. Hazel is hoping to open up a yoga studio at some point, and she starts fake dating Rory because her ex-boyfriend is transferred onto the hockey team, and he is just kind of like a horrible person, is the best way to say it. He makes comments about her. He's trying to get back together with her. He doesn't take no as an answer, and Rory steps in and is like, hey, you know what, if you fake date me, he gets off your back, but also I look good to management. And they go along on this thing, and what she doesn't know is that Rory has been in love with her forever. So she goes and she kind of goes along with it. She slowly starts falling for him as well, and Rory is really just like a cheerleader for Hazel throughout. He pushes her to, in a very respectful way, to go after the things that she wants and believe in herself. And it was just like a really nice, wholesome book. There's also no third act breakup in it, which is kind of nice. Idea of You is the 4th book that I reread this month, and I had read this book way back in 2019 and absolutely fell in love with it. It is a romance, but it's also very much a literary fiction, because it doesn't have the elements of like your classic romance novel, but I loved it. I really picked this up just in preparation for the movie, which was coming out. I did manage to get advanced screening passes to see the movie, and I just wanted to revisit the story a little bit, even though I know it by heart. Just like always, it was everything. I have no notes. I laughed, I cried, I swooned, I forgot to stop at Japan, and this is a masterpiece, and it will always be a 5-star read for me. And then after that, I actually got into my book club book for my in-person book club, Expiration Dates by Rebecca Serle. I've been wanting to read this book for so long. I got an advance copy of it, but I just finally got around to actually reading it. And I enjoyed it, but at the same time, I'm a little bit confused by it. This is very much like, I guess it's touted as a romance novel, but there's so much that kind of happens in it, and there's a twist that makes it kind of go from romance to like, what am I reading right now? Like there's just this twist that I can't really say what it is, but something happens and you just kind of are like, oh, this is a different book than what I was expecting. This isn't necessarily like a romance. It's not light and airy. It's actually quite deep, which is kind of funny because my book club, we were looking for a book that was a beach read, and I don't know if this would qualify as a beach read anymore. But it's good for what it is, but I do think that the synopsis was a little bit off about what was happening and why. And then also I had so many questions about the motivations of some of the characters. Like, our main character Daphne was really hard to relate to. Her best friend Hugo does some stuff that I was like, why would you do that? Like, why would you not do this instead? It wasn't Rebecca Serle's greatest book, and I think it didn't live up to the hype that I had for it, but it was still a 3-star read, so I can't really complain. After that, I got into just updating my spreads, and this A to Z title spread, I have been so delinquent with filling it out. So I added Just for the Summer there. The Fake Out by Stephanie Archer goes into my author spread. And then also, like, I'm not filling out my book bingo spreads for some reason. I managed to check off Reread a Favorite and one-word title for this one. The Idea of You was my favorite, and the one-word title is Piglet by Lottie Hazel. And funnily enough, I also realized that Piglet could be like published in the first half of 2024. But then I also realized that Expiration Dates actually was published in the first half of 2024. So we managed to check off 3 there. And then for romance tropes, for no third act breakup, I opted to put The Fake Out by Stephanie Archer. I could have also put this down for like Fake Relationship or He Falls First, but I think the reality is just like, it was super easy, most likely for me to find like a fake relationship or He Falls First, but I know a third act breakup is like key to some romance books, like it's a thing. So I figured, you know what, when he caught it. So we did that. And then for genre exploration, Expiration Dates by Rebecca Serle, because there is a bit of a magical realism element to there. And then for the month of June, just updating my in-person book club tracker. We are aiming for a travel theme, but like fiction based. So we actually opted to read Where'd You Go, Bernadette by Maria Semple. I actually think I've read this book before, or I've seen the movie, I don't know, but I don't remember a thing of it. So I will be going in brand new. And then for best book of 2024, I still do not have my March book printed out. I forgot this time, but it's First Lie Wins by Ashley Elton, and Piglet by Lottie Hazel was hands down the best book that I read in the month of April. So that is winning between Piglet and First Lie Wins and moving on to the next round. I'm really excited to see kind of how that plays out, because between Evil Eye and Piglet, like, I think Evil Eye wins, but I'm like, what if you read something really, really great in the next 2 months. Like, what book is that going to be? I don't know. Then after that, I just updated my reading tracker for the month of April, putting those 9 books in there to get to my goal of 100 for the year. And that essentially is it. That's all the books that I read in April of 2024. Please let me know if you have read any of these in the comments, your thoughts on them, any books you think I should read. But essentially, until next time, thank you so much for watching. Subscribe if you haven't, and I'll see you later.